Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of my videos on my USA collection, so my American albums. Now, I did do an American albums video a couple of years back, but I've gotten a lot more since then. And I will say now, chances are I'll probably make one or two mistakes here and there because I don't really know that much about the American ones compared to the UK ones, okay? So if I do make any mistakes, feel free to let me know in the comment section. And also, in these next few videos, I'll be showing my Canadian albums as well. And that's just because they are extremely similar to the US ones. You know, they're pretty much the same. And I think they go hand in hand with each other. So I'll be showing those alongside the American ones. Alright, so first of all, I'll start with the VJ stuff. So I've got a copy of Introducing the Beatles. And this is version 2. So, it's got Please Please Me on side 2 and Ask Me Why on side 1, rather than Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You, which was on the first version of this. And this is a mono copy. Now this isn't a first pressing of the version 2 because it's got the VJ logo in brackets rather than just kind of written horizontally across the top. And from what I've seen, there are a lot of different variations of this pressing, but this particular one is notable because the composers, so McCartney, Lennon, the composer credits aren't directly under the song title, they're kind of all the way over here, and it's the same for every single song on both sides. Now, as you might be able to see, this is not a particularly nice copy, you know, it's quite scuffed, but I'm still very happy to have it. Okay, now next up is a very obvious counterfeit copy of Introducing the Beatles. So let me just show you this. First of all, the colour on the cover is horrible, and this is allegedly a original stereo copy, but obviously it's not. And also, you can't see George Harrison's shadow, which you can normally see there. And here's the back. So it calls itself an original stereo of the second version. Now, if you look at the label here, it is very, very similar to the variation of the mono, which is not a counterfeit, obviously, that I've just shown you because of where the composer credits are. And to be honest, most fakes have the Beatles below the spindle hole, but this one doesn't. However, there is another giveaway feature that this is a counterfeit, and that is the colour band. It just seems to be made up of about 3 colours, sort of purple, yellow and red. There's no kind of green or anything in there, so that looks totally wrong. And there's side 2 as well, same thing with the colour band. Also, I'm not sure what this groove's meant to be here. Okay, the next album I have is Jolly What, which is the Beatles and Frank Highfield on stage. Now, to be honest, I wanted to hear this album because I like both of those artists, and I was really looking forward to hearing a live album with both of those on, until I found out that all of the tracks are in fact studio recordings. So that title is just a bit of a... it's either misleading or, if you want, a complete lie, whichever you prefer. But anyway, here's the tracks. It is a very good track listing, to be fair. Very good track listing. And this is a mono copy. However, it only features 4 Beatles songs, just Please Please Me, From Me to You, Thank You Girl, and Ask Me Why. So, just 4 Beatles songs. Still. It has a nice sort of dark blue cover. I'm pretty sure I've seen this in like a black cover, might be wrong. Now, there are 2 mono versions of this album, and that's this, which is the second pressing, and the first pressing, which has the colour band and the original horizontal VJ. But this is still a nice 60s copy. It's also in good condition, this copy, so it sounds nice. Here's side 2. Although it's not a live album, it's still a good album. Now, I have seen that Frank Highfield album with a different cover. I think it's called the portrait cover, where the Beatles are just kind of sitting down against a different background. But that version seems to be even rarer, so I haven't got one of those, unfortunately. But the next album is Songs, Pictures and Stories of the Fabulous Beatles. Now, I have to say, I really like the cover for this album. I think it's a great cover design. So I'll just take this out. So here we go. Here's the front cover. And it's got this nice little flap here which opens up and gives you plenty of information about the four Beatles. So you've got like a whole bio there really about each Beatle, and it just has the track listing on the other side there. Now, interestingly, this album doesn't just have the same tracks as Introducing the Beatles, but the actual record you get in the album is a copy of Introducing the Beatles. And it's also exactly the same variation I've got previously, which is unfortunate, but oh well. Now, I believe the reason for this is just because they had so many copies of Introducing the Beatles left over that they made this album and just shoved the same record inside. I don't know how true that is, but I'm pretty sure I read that that was the case. So, again, it's just Introducing the Beatles, really. But obviously, the cover is more elaborate. Now, there is a VJ album which I don't have a copy of yet, and that's the Beatles versus the Four Seasons. And that's basically just introducing the Beatles in one side of the album, and it's like, I think it's the Four Seasons Greatest Hits in the other. And it's don't get me wrong, those are two great artists, but it just sounds like a bit of a cheap album, really, just shoving two pre-existing albums into one sleeve. But oh well, I'll have to keep looking for a copy of that. I think they were just VJ's two biggest artists at the time, so I suppose it makes sense. And now is an interview album called Hear the Beatles Tell All. This was released, I believe, in 1964 originally. However, I don't have an original copy of it. I've just got a reissue. There's the Frank Ifield cover, which I was talking about before, the second version. And there's the Four Seasons album, and there's Songs, Pictures and Stories. However, this copy, which was released in 1979, does still carry the VJ label. So here it is. Interviews by Jim Stack and Dave Hull. Sorry, Steck, not Stack. Jim Steck. Now this is actually, I believe, a UK version of this album on Charlie Records, which was probably released at around the same time. Here it is. So that's just the same thing, really. Okay, so that's pretty much all the VJ albums. Now I've got my Meet the Beatles collection, which I'll also show in this video. So we've started the Capitol albums now. So Meet the Beatles, really, it's just tracks from With the Beatles and I Want to Hold Your Hand and one or two from Please Please Me, I think. But here's my first copy of it anyway. So this isn't the first pressing, I think this is like the third pressing. And it's kind of got like a brownish Beatles in the title there, rather than the gold Beatles as on the original pressings. And here's the original inner sleeve that comes with it. Nice blue sleeve. And here is the album. I believe this is an East Coast copy. Here we go. And side two. Now, an interesting feature about this particular variation is that after the songs I Want to Be Your Man, I Saw Her Standing There and I Want to Hold Your Hand, I'll show you the other side in a second, it has BMI credits after the song rather than ASCAP as on all the others. So it has BMI after I Want to Be Your Man, and on side one I Want to Hold Your Hand and I Saw Her Standing There. One last thing I'd like to point out about the cover is that in the bottom left hand corner there is no produced by George Martin credit. Alright, so we now move to the fourth mono pressing of With the Beatles. Sorry, Meet the Beatles, it's because the covers are similar. Now, this is a West Coast pressing, I believe. Let's take a look at the cover first of all. This is a very nice copy, by the way. So, the Beatles this time is more of a dark green print, rather than the brown or gold copy. And here's the back of the cover. However, this does have the produced by George Martin credit in the bottom left corner, which wasn't on the third pressing cover. And this version of the album comes with an orange advertising sleeve instead of a blue one. And here is the vinyl. Now, one way to tell if it's a West Coast pressing, this is something I've learned after a while, the ones are different because, I'll try and describe this. On the West Coast pressings, they see how it's got a little flick on the end of the one there. Well, only West Coast pressings have ones that look like that. East Coast pressing ones are literally just a line. They don't have the little flick on the end like that one does. And also the track listing's a lot thinner as well. They tend to be quite wide on the East Coast pressings. And of course, you can always look for the symbol in the matrix number, which is like a star, something like that. It's like a star or an asterisk. You can just about see it down below there. Okay, so I've now got a couple of stereo copies to show. So this is a stereo third pressing. As you can see, it's a little bit beat up, but nothing too bad. Yeah, so of course, as a third pressing cover, there's no produced by George Martin on the back. Now, the advertising in a sleeve for this copy looks like this. So, a bit different to the last two. And if you turn it around there, it tells you all about Capital Stereo and how amazing that is. And it is pretty good, to be fair. It is a nice stereo sound. So, here's the vinyl. Again, this is an East Coast copy, as you can see. Nice wide text. And of course, East Coast one, just a line. And it's got the BMI credits still for I Want to Hold Your Hand, Saw Her Standing There, and I Want to Be Your Man, same as on the mono. And here I've got a fourth pressing from about 1967, but I believe this is actually a Jacksonville pressing. And of course, as a fourth pressing, has the produced by George Martin credit on the bottom left hand corner of the sleeve. And this one comes in a sort of, I don't know, maybe golden colour advertising sleeve, or orange colour. Lots of albums to buy. Now the labels for this album do look like East Coast labels, because they're nice and wide, of course. However, if you look in the matrix, I'll try and find an example. Yep, if you look in the matrix here, I'll try and get the light on it. If you can see the 0, just where the light's shining, that's what tells you it's a Jacksonville pressing, I believe. And the last record for this video is another stereo copy of Meet the Beatles. However, this is the version with the gold record award thing on the front cover there. And that's because this is an orange label copy. So it's not on the Rainbow Capital label. So this is like 70s, I think, mid to late 70s, something like that. And this also has what I believe to be a nice big Jacksonville O in the matrix there. Okay, so that's the end of my first video showing my USA collection. I'll be showing more of it next week, so I hope you'll watch that, and thank you very much for watching this video.